We're so excited to have you here tonight. I was out rounding up artists, networking outside, of course. You know, you run into someone, you're hugging, you're chatting. Thanks for being here.
So excited. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining us on this Wednesday evening.
We are really excited to learn about all the great ideas artists have for our county. We love it. It's one of my favorite parts of this whole thing is you always blow me away every year with your thoughts and your ideas. You make it a great competitive process. So we're very happy to have you here, and we can't wait to hear what your ideas are later in application, but also tonight if you have questions.
Yes, and I would like to first introduce myself and again thank everyone for coming. My name is Margaret Murray, and I'm the CEO for Creative Pinellas. And this is...
And I'm Todd Wellman, and I'm our funding director here, so that means all grant applications, or if you've ever applied for one of our public art projects, like completing a mural, our work with Tampa Bay Rays, and et cetera, that's all gone through my office. And a reminder tonight, we are streaming and recording, so people know that. We have another audience that is online. Hey, online audience, thanks for being here. And quick rundown of our agenda. We're going to tell you about these grant opportunities. We have been excitedly waiting to be able to answer questions every day for weeks. People have been asking us questions, and I keep saying, I can't wait till Thursday morning. Then I can say things in the grocery store when I run into you, but not till then. But come Wednesday night, and here you are. We're going to share some common, frequently asked questions, and then of course we're going to have time to take your technical and concept questions too. Let me tell you a little bit about artist qualifications for this year. For our grants in this particular cycle, you have to be a person to apply. So these are for individual artists. They're not for nonprofits or other organizations. You have to reside in Pinellas County, so these are for Pinellas County Artists, and your annual residency has to be for at least 6 months plus a day. And you have to have a Pinellas address when you do apply. You have to be an adult at the time of application. So remember, when you apply, you have to be at least 18. If you received a 24-25 hurricane relief grant or a 24-25 signal box, you are okay to apply. So I know people have been wondering specifically about those two. If you received an Ignite Fund grant for 24-25, you may apply, but only in Impact. You can't apply again in Ignite. And then there are a few categories where you're not eligible for the opportunities this year. And those include if you received an Impact Fund 24-25, a 6-Star Performing Arts Fund 24-25, Florida Rama Fund 24-25, or if you were with Leoman CRA Tax Collector or PODS as a muralist. Not for Signal Box, but as a muralist for 25.
And you know what this shows me is that we gave away a lot of money last year.
Yeah. We're always having to look through the list like, wait, we've been, and we do that because we really want to share the opportunities. We want lots of different kinds of artists to be able to apply and increase, what people are able to have a share in with the county. You want to do the first one?
Sure. So our Ignite Fund, this is the second year that we've done it, and this is for artists to meet the need to close a budget gap for an art project. So up to $500. It can be materials, it can be to pay yourself, it can be a rental fee, it can be, yeah.
And we'll show you some real examples in just a moment for those.
And we will provide funding for 10 artists through the Ignite Fund.
And then the Impact Fund, which is also our second year of Impact Fund, these are for grants between $3,000 and $10,000. These are to create and present art in the county. And we're hoping to give out 21 grants for this cycle. And we're hoping to give out one $10,000 grant to a standout project, 2 $7,000 grants, 13 $5,000 grants, and 4 $3,000 grants. And it doesn't mean, just because the money is higher, it's a better project. Your project you may know is a $3,000 project, so you would apply at that level. So it lets you both think of the scale of the project that you might want to be applying with, and also the location within that structure that might best fit what you're thinking right now. And the two funds have some timeline similarities. Both for Ignite and Impact, the funding period is from signing. And we always do this kind of like to be determined November, December thing, because it always does depend on review processes, and we'd hate to give you a specific date and then have to undo it. So right around November, December is when we do our agreement signings. And then it's through May 31st, 2026. It's a little different than our current cycle. Our current cycle went through August 31st, 2025, but next year it's a little shorter. And then both will have a reporting period of June 2026. And we're gonna talk more about impact fund timelines in a little while. Thanks for joining us. Please come in, grab a seat. Here's those examples, the real examples. These aren't all of them from this year, but these are some projects that we did fund this year. Maybe we can go back and forth on some of these. One artist purchased a durable zine stand and curated zines to promote a range of artistic voices.
And another purchased professional video editing software that allowed them to edit their own videos for portfolio development and marketing.
Someone else wanted to run some teen workshops based on the ways grief and comics intersect, and they used the True Believer comic book as their inspiration.
And that artist actually just held a workshop here yesterday. Another grant was to acquire screenwriting software and professional playwriting training to increase their opportunity and chances to be produced by theaters.
Another artist purchased a 500mm camera lens to better capture detailed images of the avian subjects for their future artwork. And I went to their show opening, some of the artwork they were able to create in more detail because they were able to do that capturing.
And then this final one, to finalize exhibit Fractal Immersion that increases viewer knowledge of fractals. Did that happen?
Yeah.
Okay, I missed it.
There's so many things, we can't get to them all, but hopefully this gives you a good sense that the $500 can be used for a range of things. And we'll probably say this again tonight in the presentation. Some of these projects cost more than $500, but someone had maybe $1,000 in funding already, and you needed 500 more. That's why we think of this as a close the budget gap style of grant. Sometimes people, I don't know, when I do a lot of singing and I do a lot of writing, but when I'm performing and doing singing and things like Broadway cabarets, guess what? The singers never get paid. So this could be a place, like, you know what, this year we're gonna get those singers paid. So this could be a way to say, I know we always pay the pianist, because you gotta pay the pianist first, but we're also gonna try to pay the singers this year. And that could be an example of a project too. Welcome everyone, thanks for joining us. This is a little application preview for that Ignite Fund. We're gonna have a planning tool out in July, and you'll be able to download that planning tool from our website, and it's gonna give you all the practice and preview you need for the application, which will open in August. That planning tool is gonna include things like, who are you? Getting you ready to know that you'll have to upload a portfolio sample or a few. You can add a social account. You're gonna talk about your idea. The idea is really the who, what, where, and how of the concept you're going for. And then there's also a why section. How would the grant support your artistic practice or project? And in return, what community or location do you think would benefit because you're able to do that? And then we're gonna ask you the amount you're applying for. Maybe it's not fully $500, maybe it's a $250 gap that you have, so you'd apply for $250 instead of $500. It is up to you, up to $500. And if there's additional costs, you just quickly explain to us, it's a $1,000 project, I'm covering the 500 with in-kind donation, and I need 500, to complete my project budget. And then of course, when you plan to use the funds. For Ignite, when you think of timeline, it's often, for somebody who's buying a camera, they might say, when I get the money, I'll go to the store and buy the camera in January. And that's fine, we're not asking for anything super complicated, just the idea that you have a plan for how to use what you're applying to do.
And our next next grant opportunity is the Impact Fund. And this year, we are going to try something different. In April and May of 2026, we're going to be hosting a county-wide series of arts installations and performances and celebration called Making Waves. And applying for an Impact Fund grant means you're applying to create and present artwork as part of this April-May 2026 Making Waves celebration. Now, Impact Fund next year will be part of a broader effort to highlight the vital role artists play in shaping conversations around environmental stewardship and the importance of preserving and showcasing our natural environment for visitors and residents as we look to our collective future. And a lot of this work has come out of the impact that the hurricanes last year had on everyone, not only the artist community, but our hospitality partners, beach communities were devastated, and we want to make sure that we can kind of bring all of this thought making together in this really amazing celebration of Pinellas County's unique natural environment. So we're very excited about it this year.
You know, it's really designed to support artists to create environmentally focused artwork. And you know, that artwork can celebrate the unique natural landscape of the county and also engage with it. You know, so it can be topical and also the location something is happening. So we're really encouraging artists to think about placement of artwork in parks, beaches, natural spaces. There's also indoor spaces too that you can think of and you can ask us about that are environmentally connected to what we're talking about. And think of spots throughout the county as you're working through this idea for Impact Fund.
And we're looking for pieces or artworks that explore themes of sustainability, conservation, climate resilience, and the rich biodiversity that we are able to find here.
You know, the projects should have some sense of raising awareness or inspiring action or celebrating the connection between art and the environment. We really think artists have something very unique to say in this sphere, and we think it's essential, of course. We think without artists, we're not going to be able to respect and maintain the environments that we have. So we encourage you in that line of thinking to think broadly in terms of audience participation and engagement, and locating pieces and performances where visitors and residents may easily access the work.
And this year for the Impact Fund, we will continue the 5 genres that we funded last year: film, music, performance, visual arts, and writing or composition.
And we're going to give you some idea of what can fit in the different funds across the different genres. And we can't have an exhaustive list, so we came up with some samples here across. So for film, Hope Ginsberg and her team created something called Meditation Ocean. It's a multi-channel video installation that showcases Key Biscayne's evolving states of vibrancy. So that to me sounds like an Impact Fund project. In film, one that's probably better for Ignite would be casting and completing a film and submitting it to festivals. It's still a great thing to do, but it just might not be quite the match this year.
And Porcier Magoneau's Kleineman, which is a sound installation, and it is waves in a basin. They're ceramic bowls in a basin that push, and people can activate the waves, and it pushes the bowls throughout the water, creating a sound installation.
And then something in music that might not be quite a match for Impact, but could be for Ignite, is maybe you have newly composed music and you're going to play it at a venue. That could be a great thing for Ignite. In the performance category, perhaps for Impact, you're thinking about choreographing weekly outdoor dances about mangroves, and it would somehow include audience participation.
And then something that might be better for Ignite would be performing an indoor play about the history of Broadway.
In the writing or composition area, something for Impact Fund might be, there could be a current poetry event that you already help run, but maybe you want to evolve that event to be a series for outside access that would be nature focused, and maybe you bring in a poet or two of national note. And then one that maybe is better for Ignite would be you want to tour your book to schools for the benefit of area students.
And then for the visual art category, we're looking, a good example would be Xavier Cortada's The Underwater, which is a community-wide activation that encourages people to create artworks that show the rising sea levels throughout their community. And something that would probably be better for Ignite would be teaching children how to paint their emotions.
So hopefully that list gives you a good sense of all the projects are great, but they might be better for one fund or another. We often get a question about education-only projects, and those usually look like workshops, book tours, teen arts development experiences. They don't often have a create and present part of it. They're more of an educational workshop. It probably isn't a super good match this year for Impact, probably better for Ignite, but if you're unsure of a concept, please do ask us. You know, we do want to help you think about the concept you have and maybe how it could be different, or maybe you do have a concept, but it feels educational, and maybe someone in the past told you it wasn't something create and present, but we would see it that way. And we want to tell you a little bit for Impact Fund what a simplified timeline would look like. So I know I said they're signing in about November, December, and then through in May and June, but what would that really look like a tiny bit more detailed? So let's take that idea of choreographing the weekly outdoor dances for the month of April about mangroves and having audience participation. So in about November, December, you'd sign an agreement, you'd finalize your project plans, and then in January and March, I kind of think of this as more of the rehearsal and finalization period of choreography. You'd receive your payment from us, you'd begin purchasing, and if you had dancers you were paying, perhaps you'd start paying your dancers. You'd hold rehearsals, and why not have a pre-test show at a senior center? Even though that's not the main presentation for April or May, still could be a great thing to include in your project planning. There's going to be some marketing content that you'll have to submit to Creative Pinellas for Making Waves so that we can market your project as part of that celebration. And then at your location, you'd have to ensure that your location is fully set up, by the end of March so that you're ready to go. And then in April, May for Making Waves, for this project, it decided they're not going to use May, they're just going to use April, which is fine. So for the month of April, they're going to perform the weekly outdoor interactive dances at their Making Waves location. They're going to document those performances. Perhaps they have a friend filming it. Perhaps it's photography, whatever it might be. And they're going to track attendance and the effect on the audience, however it fits into their project. And then in June, they'd complete their report on grant funding, having attendance numbers and the effect of the artwork. One thing that's not on this sheet, because we weren't quite sure where they would fall, we typically have an opening celebration with the artists chosen, so that would probably be in January, and then we have a closing celebration, which would probably be either in June or July after the reports are done. We also want you to encourage brainstorming, something Margaret and I love doing, and we do this all the time. And one of the best ways we found for artists before they start anything, before they even get to our project planning sheets that we're gonna have up online, is write a short concept summary and share it with a friend. Write one tonight, call a friend, email a friend. And we wrote out the same project, but in two different ways. So you could see that the one on the left, it's not quite enough known there. We really would encourage a little more thinking to your benefit, so it really helps you write that grant application. And the one on the right sounds a little clearer. So the one on the left reads, I would like to choreograph weekly outdoor dances about mangroves. We plan to include audience participation. We hope our choreographer agrees to participate after a grant is secured. We believe a beach would be a great location. So this one's just not quite specific enough. It's not truly known what the actual proposal is, that there's going to be something created and presented. And it also includes requirements that aren't secured. So it's a really good way to think about where are you at in your process as you're doing your planning.
And the second one, which sounds a little bit, much clearer, I will choreograph outdoor dances presented each Saturday for the month of April. The dances are about mangroves and how vital it is to preserve them. Each dance will include one dance that audiences may learn and then perform together. Our secured choreographer is me, Judith, and our second secured location is Beach A. I will audition dancers in January.
That one definitely feels just a little more complete, a little more helpful. So you may first write the one on the left and then meet with a friend and say, ask me all those standard questions. Who, what, where, how often, what's going on? And you'll start adding a little more detail, we really do think that'll help you as you're going through the application process. Also want you to have a bit of a preview. Again, we're going to have that planning packet, but we also want you to know that, thinking ahead about what we're going to be asking. Who are you, of course? What's your portfolio, social? We try to do a really good job of portfolio being things that you can upload or share via links if the type of art you do has file sizes that are too large to upload. We're going to ask you about your genre across those 5 genre areas. We're going to ask you about the artwork you're proposing. What is that artwork? We're going to ask you about the location, and we're going to ask you to upload, it could be a very simple email, and we're going to have a template for you to use if you like, and that'll be in the planning packet, from your partner location that you've secured it and they're aware of the needs that you have for hosting. So using the manatee dance performance, the partner would have to know what it takes from your perspective as an artist to successfully host that manatee dance performance on Saturdays.
Can we hop in really quickly? We'll also be able to provide some assistance as far as helping to make sure that your project is able to be performed or completed in an outdoor environment. We'll be working with the Pinellas County Parks Department, and while we can't necessarily find you locations, please feel free to reach out and ask any questions, and we'll be able to point you in the right direction.
It's a good reminder. And this year, I brainstormed with several artists to help them find their locations for their projects. We'll also ask you who will work on your project. And for some artists, you'll know specifically who. Some other artists might say, well, I won't know until I audition the dancers. So maybe it's a more general answer. What are the direct experiences visitors and residents, of course, will have with your artwork? So if it is a dance, in this case, this example, there's an interactive ability to be part of that dance. So what is that direct experience? Part of that is about the ability to market your experience that you're creating so you get the biggest audience possible so that you're part of this celebration and we're able to talk about how people can go and be involved. We'll also ask you those questions about how your artwork, you hope that it will raise awareness, inspire action, or celebrate that connection between art and the environment. And we'll have some timeline question, pretty simple timeline, usually 5 to 7 points, just to make sure we see that you have the sketch of the project plan. And then what grant amount you're applying for, again, 3, 5, 7, or 10,000. And then a budget that equals 3, 5, 7, or 10,000. And if you have any additional sources of funding. I'm going to show you some sample budgets in a minute. So compared to other grants you may have applied to, these are pretty simple budgets, but we also want you to see those samples.
I thought we were going to get a brainstorming right now. Sorry.
No, not yet. We'll get there soon. The grant is meant to fund artist time. I'm going to stop there for just a minute. Artists forget to pay themselves. I would like you all to know this. Artists tend to apply for grants and say, I want a $7,000 grant to buy oil paint. I'm like, okay, so how is the artist, you, painting for the next 4 months eating? Please, please let me know that someone else is cooking food for you then. So we want you, if it's your project, to include payment to yourself in your project, okay? We want to be really clear about that. You're doing amazing professional work, and it's okay to apply for a grant with us to pay yourself to do that work. I hope that's super clear. The other thing it can fund, of course, are materials, subcontractors. Again, I'm a choreographer and I got a grant, but I need to subcontract with dancers, then I gotta pay those dancers too, etc., on and on. And the grant is meant to, the funding period or the use of the money is from the time you sign the agreement through the end of May. So that basically means your receipts have to be dated from the time you sign the agreement through May 31st. The simple budget, again, that you're going to submit aligns with 357 or $10,000. And it is up to you, the artist, as you're working with your Making Waves location, if any grant funds need to be used to pay for location fees. Okay, so you'll want to think about that when you're thinking about location, or is the location providing you the space and any associated services in kind. And while the funds can't be used to do fundraising directly, you may raise additional funds. You may get a grant and please brag to another foundation and say, hey, guess what? Creative Pinellas just gave me $10,000. Please tell them that. And they might say, oh, okay, we'll give you $10,000 too. Yep. So, that does happen. So, please do that. You just can't use the funds to do fundraising. But you may raise additional funds. And you may let us know in your application that you've already secured other funds. So that's also something that helps a review panel know that if you have a $50,000 project and you're applying for a $3,000 grant, we might say, well, where's the $47,000 coming from? And sometimes artists just forget to say, oh, I already raised the $47,000, I have it in the bank. Sometimes artists forget to say that, so just remember to be clear about that too. Let me show you some of those budgets though. So here's a simple budget. Super simple. This is not the giant budgets that we fill out for other kind of grants. The total cost of this project is $7,000. The grant being requested by this artist is $5,000. Okay, so they're requesting $5,000 from Creative Pinellas. So for a choreographer fee, they're assuming from the grant they'd use $2,000, and then someone else is paying for $1,000 of that. For the rental of location, they're assuming they're paying $1,000, and someone else is paying for $500. For hospitality, they're assuming all of it is being paid by someone else for $500. And for their dancer fees, they're assuming they're paying the dancers $2,000 out of the grant and $0 from another source. So if you add up to the to be covered by Creative Pinellas grant column, it equals the $5,000 of the grant, and the other column equals $2,000, and so those add up to $7,000 project. This is the same project, but it's someone applying for a $7,000 grant from Creative Pinellas instead of a $5,000 grant, and they put all of the same money, but they put it into the Creative Pinellas column. So this is the one where they split it between two sources, and this is where it's all going to one source. Same project, costs the same amount of money. Instead of two different sources paying for it, now one source is paying. And then here's an example of a $20,000 project. So if the project costs $20,000 and the person's applying for a $10,000 grant, this obviously means $10,000 is being attributed to one source and then $10,000 to the Creative Pinellas grant. In this case, I use the example of a sculptor. That the sculptor is going to pay themselves $5,000. That the location preparation for the installation costs $3,500 to the grant and $2,500 to the other source. The other source is going to pay for $7,500 in materials, and the choreographer is going to cost $1,500 out of the grant. So I really wanted you to have some really clear examples where the grant could equal your project, or the grant can be less than the overall cost of the project. And this last column doesn't mean that that's necessarily money. That could be in kind. It could just mean that someone's donating $7,500 in, what's something people make sculptures out of nowadays? Bronze. $7,500 in bronze. Someone had it in their backyard and they didn't know what to do with it, so they gave you $7,500 in bronze. Whatever it might be, but that's just the cost of that project. And some general timeline, it's June 25th today. That's at the very top of this. In July, we hope you practice with the planning packet. In August, that's the month the applications will be open, August 1st to August 31st. And then the review panel will select artists, September to October. We'll again have the agreements signed November to December. And usually November, December is when Ignite artists receive the funding, and then Impact artists receive their funding in January. We'll have a launch event, and then January, February, you're completing, you're composing, you're rehearsing, you're doing all that wonderful stuff toward the marketing push, and then toward making waves. Whenever your artwork is being presented, delivered, whatever the right verb might be in April and or May. And then June. reporting, and then a nice closing party of some kind as well. We got some frequently asked questions
Oh, yeah, we
here.
do.
Wow, so is Creative Pinellas matching impact artists to locations before or after applications are submitted?
We are actually not, but again, we're here to help. If you have an idea and you're wondering if you're allowed to have a performance or an art piece in a park, we'll be able to help guide you in the right direction.
And may my grant idea be part of a bigger project? Does my whole project for Impact or Ignite have to end by May 2026? Let's say it together. No. So here's my example of this. Say you're a touring musician and you have shows planned for June 2026 to January 2026 to December 2026. The second half of that tour, right, is not part of our grant period. But the whole year, you're gonna be performing songs about slash pines and every kind of tree that you love. So that's okay. For us, you're not gonna apply for the whole year. You're gonna apply to do a project that's gonna be performed in April and or May. Make sense? So in your life, we know, because artists have much bigger lives. The work you're doing is much larger. Another example is if you were making a film, maybe all of your casting is being done right now, well before the project period ever started, right? But what you're applying for is to finish the film and then to somehow screen it interactively in April or May. So it can be things that continue after the project period and things that have started well before the project ever came along.
Could a project's presentation part happen just one time during the months of April and May?
Well, tell us about it, right? Is it so effective and impressive, and it's the thing, and it makes the most sense, and the resource that you have can only happen one time. Tell us about that in the application. So there's no initial, because it's one time versus you have 4 mangrove dances versus something else. The reviewers are gonna just wanna understand the project and why it has to happen at the frequency that you're submitting it for. Could an installation be permanent but initially celebrated in April and or May?
Yes.
Yes.
Funds permitting.
Yeah, funds permitting. Also your partner permitting. So work with that partner. So maybe you're working with a municipality and they're helping you match for a new sculpture that's a giant manatee. I don't know what it might be. And they're like, yeah, we are gonna install this and celebrate it for the months of April and May, and then it's gonna live on the grounds of the museum forever after that. That would be great. That'd be pretty cool.
Sure. May my artwork occur inside or does it have to be outdoors?
Oh, I love this.
Yes.
I told Margaret earlier today my idea, if someone were to choreograph an ice dance inside a countryside mall, I would be fascinated by that. Somehow a giant sun is going around and like
We talked about penguins and polar bears.
and anyway, so we're being a little facetious, but that's a good example of a place that might, if you were doing an ice dance and that was part of your practice, sometimes you see ice rings pop up outside. I know I skated on the one at the St. Pete Pier a number of years ago, but that's pretty expensive to create an ice rink, I'll just tell you. But could be cheaper if somehow it is very specifically about ice skating as part of your practice. Countryside Mall might be the location that takes place in. Yeah. May I appear in more than one grant application? Yes. No. This is the trick here. You may only be the lead artist applying one time, but you can be mentioned as a subcontractor in someone else's application. Okay?
And if I could add, we also really encourage collaboration on these projects. So that's highly encouraged, and we can work with even other arts organizations and other groups of artists, but there can only be one person applying for the grant funding.
Yeah, and that gets at these next 2 questions. May a friend support me in applying, or may I list someone in my life to be able to chat with Creative Pinellas on my behalf if I'm selected? This happens for many, many numbers of reasons, and the answer is yes. And it's really important that if you do have someone in your life that supports you in your planning, your budgeting, whatever it might be, banking, receiving money, it is really important to click the button in the application that says, yes, I would like to add someone, because that lets us talk about your application. It lets us talk about that private information in the way that you want. There's also another button for you to add a collaborator. So it also lets us talk to that person too. And that's really where things come in for a band or a collective or artistic partners. That while only one person can apply to be the grantee, you can apply together in that way. You'd apply as the lead artist, and then you would add that collaborator into your application. And then, if chosen, may my personal LLC receive my grant?
I know the answer to that.
Yes.
Okay, yes.
Yes, we just learned something on stage. Yes, your personal LLC can receive your grant. We know we said earlier that this is for individuals, but a lot of individual artists hold personal LLCs, and that's perfectly all right. And then finally, may I mention in the application that though I've secured funds, they are contingent upon me receiving the Creative Pinellas grant. Yes, yes, please do. Maybe you've worked with a city again, and they said, yeah, we'll throw in 10,000 if you get the $10,000 grant, or we'll match whatever you get. Please do tell us. There's a section in the application. Would you like to add anything else, like a CV, a link, a PDF of an article? That could be a great place to say, add a support letter like that. So there's any number of things that you could put there. When it comes to August, you're going to reach the application at creativepinellas.org. And in our planning packet, which will also be available on our website, we'll have a step-by-step application planning packet in early July coming out. And that's going to be on our information page about what we discussed tonight. And it's going to be shaped by the questions we're about to hear from you. We really, 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 really encourage you to use the planning packet to help you prepare so that when you arrive to the application, you've been thinking about it, you've been primed, you've been prepped. And then we also encourage you, once that application opens, it's going to be in a program called submittable.com. You will have to get a free Submittable account. And log in on August 1st and just look at it. You don't have to submit it that day. It's going to save your drafts. You'll be able to look at it, you'll be able to practice with it, you'll be able to come back for that whole month of August. And then, but you do have to submit, don't forget that you didn't submit. You do have to submit that by August 31st. And that link to that application will also be on our information page. And then things about staff availability. Grant staff, AKA Todd, that's me. I'm going to be available via phone and email for consultations about your idea in the month of July. The way you request a consultation, and we do this because a lot of requests, so it really helps to sort those out. grants@creativepinellas.org is one of my email addresses. We ask that you include your name, phone number, email address, a 2-sentence artwork idea summary, and a specific question. Sometimes the questions come through like, is this a good idea? I'm like, I will say yes, because I love all art ideas. Okay, so that's not super helpful, but it's specific. So try to think about the question that you are looking to be answered. If you're seeking a phone consultation and not just an email response, please do include a few times between 8:30 a.m. and 6 p.m. that you're available to receive a call. And then I'm going to try to call everyone. Pending staff availability, of course, meaning me, we may respond, or I may respond to questions via email as well, especially, if it gets down to July 32nd. I don't remember how many days July has. 31st. Once it gets down to that last day, it can be pretty difficult to reply. Once we get to August, the questions that haven't been answered yet, that we haven't been able to get to, and any additional questions won't be answered except for the technical parts of the questions, okay? The technical parts will be things like what's the link to the application? That's a kind of a technical question. Now we have time for your questions. We can't wait. We have questions coming from a few places. So coming down now, we have Roman from our marketing team.
Roman.
And also Maggie from our marketing team here to grab mics. They're going to be on both sides of the room. And then Roman is also also monitoring our online audience. So he may also bring questions to us from the online audience. We have a reminder. This is a great reminder for artists, for everyone really, but for artists. We all have amazing things to share. But since we have limited time, please be judicious with story sharing and your preamble. So think about all that wonderful stuff and the story that got you to your question, and then just ask the question part. That'd be great. But if you have a question, please feel free to raise your hand, and one of our mic people will bring you the mic.
Hi, I'm Sparks. Just a clarification. So if I wanted to apply for, and forgive me, I'm already mixing them up. So the Ignite is just the $500, right? So if I wanted to apply for a $500 grant for just myself individually, and I was wondering if I could also apply as the lead artist for a collective for the Impact Grant.
You'd have to have a different artist apply as the lead artist for the Impact Grant.
Okay, thank you.
You have to pick one, either Ignite or Impact.
Okay, but and then you said that I could be, it would just have to be somebody else in the group.
Yeah,
to
would
apply.
be the lead artist.
Okay.
Yep. Great question.
Can Beyond Placemaking awardees apply to this grant cycle?
Yes, Beyond Placemaking was a different version of Impact, to make that short, and yes, you are eligible to apply for this cycle.
Hi, I'm Azora. So I know this season's grant is based off of environmental. Will there be other themes moving forward in different years that you guys are looking for?
That's a great question. I'm sure we will. We also have multiple calls throughout the year. This is the particular one about the individual artist grants that's environmentally themed. But yeah, we don't tend to keep the same themes all the time. What do you think about that, Margaret?
Right. I'm almost positive that we'll have other themes throughout the years. Yeah.
So, for a location, at a public beach or a park, what kind of permission would we need, or, and also, insurance, like the place I work for, they're obsessed with insurance. And so, would we have to get event insurance or something?
I can somewhat answer the first part of that question. It really depends on the scope of your project. So if it's something small and it's just, two people in dialogue or something like that, I don't see the need for a permit. But if it's something larger, where there may be more than 50 people gathering, we have some people who are interested in putting on concerts in public parks. Those are the kind of things that we would need to talk with the specific location about.
Yeah. And when it comes to insurance for these kinds of projects, that's part of working with your partner for the requirements for the location, so that they require the insurance, but we're not requiring you, like we have in the past for different grants, we have required insurance to be submitted with the application, but we're not this year.
Hello, I'm Kimberly Boshears. I have a studio down in St. Pete. If that studio is my location, that's fine. If I have my own studio down there and we use our own gallery to do the project.
Yeah.
Great.
Explain how it would work, why it would work. My front yard might be my location too, right? But just make sure, to your question about permitting, I'd probably call the city if I was expecting 200 people, and maybe I'd have to get the street closed. But so there could be some considerations, but yeah.
Yes?
Does the theme have to be environmental, or what if the materials that you're using are the environment?
So let me turn this. This is one of my favorite things when artists are kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Turn that around and say, my project fits because my materials are environmental. How's that? And then you'd have to explain that to us, rather than starting with I know it's not what you're looking for, then the reviewer is gonna say no. So, but like I do find that sometimes with artists, they're like, I don't think this fits, and then you describe it, I'm like, that's perfect. I don't know, you know, that's usually what happens.
I'm Marcia Simone Cohen, and my question is, everything we're concerned with the environment in this project, and it should be geared to Pinellas County, not the world, not outer space, not anything else, correct?
It can focus on the broader geographic area or the universe, but it does have to be presented in Pinellas County. Yes, it is. While we wait for some more questions, I do want to talk a little bit about what we're expecting and hoping regarding attendance to these events. So we do want to make sure that they are as open and accessible to the wider public as possible. And I did some calculations last night, and we are hoping for between, and I can't remember the exact number, I think it was 14 million or 1.4 million, something. We looked at the number of visitors to Pinellas County in a 3-month period between April, May, and into early June. And then what we did is we calculated 0.5% of visitors plus residents coming to see all of the artworks that happened during this time period. And we're looking at about 30 to 40,000 people. So there will be a lot of opportunities for everyone to get their artwork in front of other people. And we'll be extensively marketing the whole Making Waves concept. We have some marketing partners we'll be working with as well.
Hi, my name's Helen. I have a question about one of the locations. If, say, we were going to make a dance performance using environmental materials like sound scores from ocean, and we wanted to put it inside potentially and outside, is the gallery here an option?
Depending on availability, yes. And I would also like to just mention that here, where we are right now, Pinewood Park Cultural Campus, there are plenty of opportunities to do performances here. So not only do we have a Creative Pinellas gallery, we have an outside courtyard, we have some other public outdoor spaces here. And the Florida Botanical Gardens, we work very closely with them, so we can work with them if you think your project would fit with them. And then we also have Heritage Village, which has some wonderful opportunities as well.
Oh, okay. Hi, I just have a quick question. If you are somebody who has a or more than one location that might apply to some of the other applicants, what's the best way? Is there a way to go on a list where applicants can look for possibilities or anything like that? Because we have outdoor and indoor locations that might fit for an artist.
So oh, that's a really good question. I love that. Are you talking about Studio 5663?
I own a lot next door, so
Right.
make it available for sculpture.
Or indoors as well, depending on what the project is. But we do have an indoor gallery, and we do have the lot that is owned by Lori next door. So how do we make artists who might, aware of this?
That's a great question, and it would be pretty easy for me to add, that kind of generosity to our information page. So if you wanted to send me an email so that I have it in writing, that you're allowing me to list you and your contact information, I can add that to the information page.
Love that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that was a great. There's a question in the back here, Roland.
Real close. Is this close enough?
Yes, it
Hi,
is.
everybody. My name is Kathy, and I'm going to be coming into this as a writer. My question is regarding, should I, in figuring out which part of the grant, what limit or amount to do for the grant, should I figure in publicity and sort of thing, or will Creative Pinellas do all of that in the spirit of the whole thing?
That's a great question. If you have a specific way you want to do publicity, and I'll just use the example of a postcard, you are more than welcome to include that as part of the application process. And I'm really glad you mentioned writers. We don't want to forget writers, and that there's very creative ways to fulfill this grant, we believe, across all genres. So again, if you do have an idea and you want to work through that, make sure you can ask tonight, you can ask right after tonight, because we'll be down here, or you can also email a question, again, as I said, to grants@creativepinellas.org.
Any other questions?
So just wondering, as far as the type of art grant, would it include art cars?
Can you say a little more about that?
So one of my ideas is to buy a golf cart and turn it into an art car, building a sculpture on top of it and on the front of it, where it would be interactive. It would include the 5 senses: touch, feel, sense, taste, stuff like that. And I would want to take it around specifically for maybe art walk and go to different galleries, but present it obviously outside. And yeah, I don't want to say too much, but that's the general idea.
I would encourage, if you were thinking about that, I would encourage you to go back and look at some of the qualifying factors that we're asking for, and see if you can match it to those. And I can't remember what slide they're on. Whereas themes of sustainability and conservation.
Yeah, just make sure any project really would have to not just be outside, but match those themes is one thing. The other thing I would say is sometimes artists fall into a little bit of a trick, and they say since it's mobile, they list the location as everywhere, and that's not super helpful for reviewers either. Like try to be as specific in the everywhere as possible. Like the plan would be, this week I've talked to this business and it'll be parked in this lot, and that's very helpful for reviewers as well as they're thinking about projects.
Thank you.
Quick question about, let's say I wanted to show my work in my gallery, maybe next month in his gallery, or a couple weeks there, a couple weeks mine, and then maybe here at Creative Pinellas. Do I have to be a member of Creative Pinellas? Is there something to sign up to use your gallery here to maybe make it a wandering for those months?
No, it's a great question. I would say if you're applying with multiple locations, then you would be wanting to upload one file that shows that you have agreement from each location. Creative Pinellas doesn't have any particular membership that you can apply to in the same way other locations may, but you would want to email us and get the name of the right person to have a meeting with, to be able to have that discussion and see if it's a good match.
Heritage Village is available anytime? Heritage Village is available in like evenings and nights also, or just when it's open?
Just when it's open.
Okay, so like regular hours.
Right, and I'm just using that as an example. You would have to go through the same process as any other location. Make sure you reach out to them and describe your project and make sure that they're on board with it, and then submit the application.
Okay.
Okay, there's that reminder, that email again, grants@creativepinellas.org. And we cannot wait, we really can't wait to hear about your ideas. I can't wait for the month of July when I can really talk to you and have meetings with you and really think through those things. And in a minute, we can't wait for a number of you to come down here who think of questions as soon as the mics go off. But that's good too, so feel free to come down here and chat with us as well. Yeah, just thank you for being here. We are here to be your local arts agency to fund and celebrate and uplift and platform Pinellas artists. So we never want anyone to think, oh, we can't ask questions, or they don't want, our pitch. No, we want your pitch. Like that's all we do. And it really really helps us. The more you see us, the more you talk to us, the more events you come to, the more questions you ask. It really is something we want. So please never feel that you're bothering us or anything. We really do love it.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, third question, sorry. So there's a panel that votes on who gets the grants? And
Yes.
do we know who these people are, or what their thing is, or how many people are on the panel?
There's typically a panel of 5 to 7 people across all the different genres, so I try to do a really good job of selecting people who have experience in the different genres. It's often people who have received grants from us in the past, and other professionals in the area, some people not in the area. I'm still in the middle of building that panel. Right now, it's pretty typical that it wouldn't be quite built yet, so I don't know who's really on it right now. But last year, I think we had 6 people, one from each genre, and then more of a generalist.
Hi, yes.
Oh, wait for the mic, please, just so people online. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Janice Guerin. 2 questions. One I ask all the time. Is there any way for us to see, once we upload our images, what you guys are going to see? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know
Like what the quality
I know the
is
question
on
you're
your end?
asking, yeah. So Submittable does a really good job of allowing you to upload really huge files generally, you know. And I'm just trying to think of the right way to answer this question. Very often when you use an application software, once you upload it, it gives you sort of a preview, less, I don't know, what do you want to say, more pixelated version that you're seeing. Lower resolution, thank you so much. And that's not the actual file that we get, that's just the preview file. I have not had an instance, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of applications of when I click in to actually look at that item, that it doesn't become the thing that you meant. So I can't think of an instance of that happening. I have had instances of people submitting locked work. So a locked video, a link to a locked video, a link to a locked image in a portfolio. We don't want, that's not helpful. That can really hurt your portfolio if it requires a password, so really things have to be open. So that's really where we've seen the challenge, not on our end in viewing quality. But right now I can't really think of a way, to show you what we're seeing other than, the intention that artists have had so far. We've received those high-res images consistently.
Okay. And also, is it a blind panel review?
No, the panel does have access because you submit things like your portfolio, your social media, your website, so they have full access to click through those things.
In the back there?
Hi, yeah, I was just curious, are there gonna be any more signal box grants coming up or things like that nature? I know sometimes there's grants with the raise as well. And also, how about emerging artists? Is the emerging artist grant show going away, or is that something that's still gonna be coming around?
Co-star with the 10 questions. No, it's good. No, thank you so much. Let me think through these. The Emerging Artist Grant and the Professional Artist Grant were both wrapped into Ignite and Impact funds starting last year. We still have our Arts Annual Show, and that's in the winter, December time. And we have other open calls that are just for visual artists at time that aren't connected to grants. As far as these different public and private calls that we have, we just completed 11 Signal Box call, and those are being installed right now. We're just completing a number of mural calls as well that went through winter and spring. We are meeting with the county this summer to determine what the next steps are. What we always want to make sure is it's not just like, oh, we did Signal Boxes, so we'll do Signal Boxes again. We always want to meet with them and be very intentional. Is that what's best for the county right now, and does that really meet the vision? But we're meeting with a number of different stakeholders about kind of the next season. Our season runs in the county season, which is October 1st to September 30th, so I know it can feel a little different, but sometimes we know things are much better kind of once fall hits, and then we're able to start announcing those calls again. But whatever it is, we are planning on having more public calls. I just don't quite know specifically what the type of art would be. If it's visual, if it's music, we're just not sure right now. Okay, this is my second. Thank you so much for being here. It was really good. Please ask us questions. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.